Hello, fictional. Welcome to the Fiction Series X. Today we are gonna see, what if Issei was Ketchum Brothers? If you end up liking this video, please consider subscribe, so without further ado, let's get into the video. Pallet Town. Ash Ketchum was lamenting over his loss in the Johto League against Harrison, even after he finally defeated Gary in battle. However, he was beaten due to a new Pokémon he never faced, and even after training his Pokémon, he still only ended up in the top 8 of the Johto League. Why did I have to lose? Ash asked himself as he was at Professor Oak's lab. He let his Johto Pokémon rest with his other Pokémon before he decided to go for a walk on his own, leaving Pikachu behind. While Ash was beating himself up after his latest battle, even though he did very well despite his last league battle in Kanto, his mother was worried about him since she had never seen Ash this depressed, even after his loss in the Kanto League. I wish there were something I could do to help him, Delia said as she was making some lunch for her son, since she knew he hadn't eaten much for breakfast this morning, until she heard the roars of a loud dragon outside her house, before the door was being knocked on by a guest she wasn't expecting at this time of day. Who is it? Delia asked as she walked towards the door before the person replied to her question. It's me. Is Ash still here? I'm here to talk to him. The voice said. Delia's eyes widened as she recognized the voice before opening the door to see her adopted son she had missed so much. Standing outside next to a massive Charizard that was different from a normal Charizard due to this Charizard being black and purple instead of orange and cream colored was an 18-year-old teenager who was wearing a special attire that showed a new status since the attire consisted of a red t-shirt with a picture of the unique Charizard's head. He also wore jeans and special boots that were light but durable. The teenager had dark brown hair but light brown eyes like a doe before he smiled at Delia. Hey, Mom. It's been a while. How have you been? The teenager asked as Delia hugged him in one of her infamous mama bear hugs before she replied to him. I've been well. How's my wandering champion been, huh, Isay? Delia teased as Isay chuckled at her attempts to mess with him. Heh. I've been well, by the way. Is Ash here? I'm worried about him due to him losing to Harrison in the Johto League. Issei asked as Delia shook her head before replying to his question. I'm afraid he's at Professor Oak's lab, but he's been severely depressed since his loss, even after Ash was able to defeat Gary in battle, Delia explained as Issei sighed in response. Yep. I figured this would happen, especially since Blaziken was well trained by his trainer. I'm impressed by how far Ash and Gary have come, but I can tell he needs to regain his confidence and learn why he lost in the battle. Issei said as Delia looked concerned and asked. Are you going to stay here for a bit? But of course. I'd be more than happy to spend some time with my second mother figure and my little brother in all but blood. Issei said as Delia giggled at his reply before hugging Issei a bit more gently as she spoke to him. I'm glad. I was worried you would have continued traveling to a new region after your journey in Sinnoh and then Galar. Delia said as Issei replied to her. I honestly enjoyed traveling to the two regions as well as Kalos. Really nice scenery, and the entertainment district was one of my favorite parts in Kalos since it allowed me to grow alongside my team. Issei said as his Charizard nuzzled its head next to Issei's head before Delia patted the dragon's head and smiled at its kindness despite its intimidating presence. Well, I'm glad to see you've grown up so much in just 2 years. You are already 19 years old and yet you've defeated the leagues in 4 regions. Do you plan on taking on some more regional leagues? Delia asked as Issei chuckled before replying to her. I'm honestly interested in Hoenn, so I was thinking of going there and seeing the legends within the region, as well as crushing the trainers in said region with my powerhouse of a team, Issei said as Charizard roared purple flames into the air before the two headed towards Professor Oak's lab. At the same time, Delia smiled behind them, recalling how she met him 2 years ago. It's hard to imagine that the first time he showed up, he was determined and yet had a good heart in him as well as self-doubt. I could see it in his eyes, but I'm glad he was able to grow into a fine young man after these past 2 years. Delia said as she smiled at the young man's back before going to make an extra serving for her adopted son, whom she treated as a member of her family. Issei smiled at watching his second mother figure go back home before sighing to himself. It's hard to imagine it's only been 2 years since my journey. I'm glad I came back since it looks like Ash needs some help with his confidence and skills as a trainer. Issei cared for his little brother, but he also knew about Ash's habits of being a bit neglectful about his training, as well as his Pokémon, which he refuses to evolve for some reason. Issei was definitely surprised before looking at his left hand. What do you think, Drake? Issei asked as a green glow formed on the top of his left hand. I do think that if he had used his senior Pokémon, who have more experience than him, then he could have lasted in the top 4 of the league instead of the top 8. Drake replied as Issei mentally replied to his partner and friend. I get it, but you also have to remember that Ash is a rookie trainer who didn't even have a chance in the Kanto League because of those idiots from Team Rocket. If those idiots were stalking me, I'd threaten them. If they didn't leave me alone, I'd send them to the hospital in a body cast. Issei shouted in his mind before Drake laughed in reply. Hahaha. There's the protective partner I know and love, though I'm surprised you came back home, given that you did want to travel in Kanto or Hoenn instead of Johto. Drake said as Issei replied to him. Well, yes, that's true, but it's because I wanted Ash to grow as an individual and a trainer of his own, but given how he did in Kanto and Johto, I'm worried he'll keep going to new regions and hardly make it to the Elite Four and the champion, should he possibly win the league. Isay said as he knew his little brother very well after meeting him. He could tell that he had a long way to go before becoming a Pokemon master. Issei and his unique Charizard headed to the professor's lab, where he knocked on the door of the lab to see Oak walk out and smile at the boy. Ah, Issei. It's great to see you again. How are you doing after defeating the Galar League? Oak asked as Issei smiled in reply. Haha. Oh, my team and I had a lot of fun, especially after we beat Leon. Cynthia was definitely stronger than Leon, but he definitely earned his title as a champion. As for Diantha, she could use a new team to help her career as a champion, since she wasn't exactly that strong as a champion. Issei said as Oak laughed at Issei's reply before pointing to the back. Ash is in the back. He's by himself, and I don't blame him, but I wish he could stand back up and get back into the training. His mother is worried about him. Oak said as Issei nodded in reply. Of course. I'm already aware of Ash's most recent loss and wish to help him. Issei said as he and his Charizard headed to the backyard to see Ash's Pokemon on one side while Ash was by himself, sitting on a log. Issei then walked over to Ash as he knew what he wanted to say before sitting down next to him. Geez, Ash, I thought you would have been more excited to see me again, Issei said in a faux hurt tone, before Ash turned to Issei and smiled as he hugged his brother, who chuckled at his little brother's joy and ruffled the messy mop of hair on his head. Issei and Ash hugged each other for a bit until they let each other go as Issei spoke to Ash. I heard about your battle in the Johto League. Honestly, you didn't do so bad. Making it to the top 8 after the top 16 in Kanto. That's a massive success, and I couldn't help but be proud of you. Issei said as Ash looked down and replied. But I still lost to Harrison and lost because of a new Pokemon I didn't know before, Ash replied before Issei wrapped an arm around his brother and said something that interested him. Look, Ash. Sometimes you win and sometimes you lose. You don't become champion in just a year. Being a Pokemon champion takes a lot of training and dedication to becoming one. Take it from someone who had to train and push my team to the limits and beyond that to get where we are now. I literally have 3 leagues under my belt and I was especially excited and a bit scared when facing Cynthia and Leon. Diantha wasn't much of a real threat, so she wasn't really a challenge. Issei said as Ash looked at his brother before continuing. I watched your Kanto fights, and I'll admit that up until you faced Richie, you lost because those idiots from Team Rocket were persistent on taking your Pikachu and other Pokemon. I wouldn't even bother with such annoying people and send them flying myself. Issei said as he clenched his left hand to show how much pain he would inflict on the trio. Now everyone is so strong they can take on fighting Pokemon, Ash said as both of them laughed until Issei patted his brother back and continued. Look, all I'm saying is that you just have to take the experiences from your defeats and push yourself and your Pokemon to become stronger. This brings me to the next topic I wanted to ask you. Why are most of your Pokemon in their pre-evolutions and your selection is limited to only basic Pokemon instead of having a wider variety of different types of Pokemon? Issei asked as Ash gave him a response. There were lots of times when I wanted to catch new Pokemon, but I was more focused on the Pokemon I had already captured and tried to train them as much as possible, Ash said as Issei clicked his tongue and replied with a look of disappointment on his face. Ash. A Pokemon master is a trainer who experiments with many different types and species of Pokemon in order to achieve their goals. Over your journey in both Kanto and Johto, you have caught a minimal amount of Pokemon from each region when you know that you've had immeasurable opportunities to catch new Pokemon. Issei said as he then continued. A team that consists of common types and not as many different types as possible isn't a very healthy team to start with, and that could affect you. And I've noticed your lack of Steel, Dark, Ghost, Psychic type, and even Fossil Pokemon. Why did you not try to catch some of those? Didn't you see any Fossil Pokemon in Kanto or at the Orange Islands or even Johto? Issei asked as Ash rubbed the back of his head and replied. Well, I never really had the chance or best place to catch them, and Ash said before Issei cut him off. No, that's not an excuse. You let your ignorance and stupidity take over you there. When you were captured by that Aerodactyl and after Charizard defeated it, did you not think of catching it? What about when you saw that large horde of Kabuto in the Orange Islands? Or what about other Pokemon you saw in the regions you went to? Did you not think about possibly catching Pokemon? That would have allowed you to have a better plan, or were you okay giving them all away to others like Hunter to Sabrina or your Primap to that Pokemon fighter? What about your Pidgeot? Did you not think of bringing her back on the team as well or trying to catch Firo? Issei said as his eyes hardened. He spoke to Ash in a demeaning tone. There were an enormous number of times when you could have caught other Pokemon or, better yet, trained them to become stronger, but your ignoring mind said no and to keep going straight ahead. Ash was starting to get really annoyed with this lecturing. Who did he think he was to start scolding Ash like he had made the stupidest mistake of his life? But Ash wasn't about to let his anger get the best of him until Issei continued. Also, another problem you have is not evolving many of your Pokemon. Your Pikachu could become much stronger had you evolved it to become a Raichu. Issei said before Ash replied to him. A Pikachu doesn't want to evolve. He's still got something to prove. Ash replied as Issei merely raised a brow and asked. And pray to tell what might that be? What does he have left to prove? Issei asked as Ash gave his response. That he can defeat opponents bigger than him without evolving, Ash said as Issei scoffed at the idea. Well, the biggest or heaviest Pokemon in existence is Groudon. And seeing as how he is both a legendary Pokemon as well as a ground type, and even if you had Pikachu learn every move possible, Pikachu would still be defeated by many factors. In conclusion, it seems Pikachu has nothing left to prove. Issei said as he couldn't believe the nonsense he was hearing from his younger brother before Ash barked back at him. Well, maybe Pikachu will defeat Groudon one day if we battle him. Then he'll have nothing left to prove. And I can't force him to evolve. It is his decision, not mine. Ash said as Issei and his Charizard looked at Ash as if he lost his head before asking him. But what about your other Pokemon such as Squirtle, Bulbasaur, Belief, Totodile, Cyndaquil, or even Phanpy? Had you evolved them, then they could have easily become stronger and more useful in your battles. Leaving them as their pre-evolution will only weaken them, except Belief, since she proved herself in battle. Issei said as Ash gritted his teeth and stood on his feet. Then why don't I show you in a Pokemon battle how wrong you are? Ash yelled as Issei's Charizard wanted to burn him for insulting his partner and master before Issei stopped him with an outstretched hand. Okay then, it's a deal but under one condition. I'll use only 3 Pokemon and you make a team of 6 out of all your Pokemon. If you beat me, then I'll take back what I said, but if I win, then you'll have to take my words seriously. Issei said as Ash gritted his teeth and replied. You got a deal. Ash said as he then shook Issei's hand before Ash ran to get his team ready, while Issei watched his brother run and get ready until he sighed as he knew the outcome of the battle. He may be Arceus's chosen one, but he's still just a kid and has a long way to go before becoming a true Pokemon master, Issei said as he then looked at his Charizard and rubbed his head before speaking to him. Don't worry, Ryuga. You'll have your chance since you are the first on the team to fight Ash's 6 Pokemon. Issei said as the unique Charizard known as Ryuga smirked as he blew some purple flames out of his mouth before preparing to face his master little brother, who was nothing but a bug Pokemon in his eyes. And this battle would be nothing but a slaughter and a lesson for Ash Ketchum. So you're telling me Ash is challenging Issei to a Pokemon battle right now? Delia asked as Oak nodded in reply. Indeed, and it's definitely going to be a battle one won't forget since Ash may have some experienced Pokemon, but I can tell that Issei doesn't see Ash as an equal yet, Oak said as he was standing as the referee with Ash and Pikachu to his left and Issei to his right. That battle shall now begin with Issei Hyoudou and Ash Ketchum from Pallet Town, battling with Issei using only 3 Pokemon, while Ash uses 6. No time limit and substitutions are allowed. The battle shall end once either side loses their Pokemon. Professor Oak explains as Issei and Ash agreed to the terms before Ash called out his first Pokemon. Let's go, Pikachu. Ash shouted as Pikachu ran into the field with Issei looking amused before calling out his first Pokemon. Let's go, Basilisk, Issei said as a massive and deadly cobra-like Pokemon emerged and hissed at the small mouse, causing it to tremble in fear as Ash was shocked by this new Pokemon. What kind of Pokemon is that? Ash asked as Issei replied to him. This is actually an Ekin from the Kanto region. The Ekin's evolution line gained a new form that was only available in the Sinnoh region, so allow me to introduce Nakabra formally. She's a poison dragon type, and trust me when I say you don't want to underestimate this wonderful snake. Issei said as Basilisk hissed as it coiled its large body around Issei, as if it was trying to protect him before Ash gritted his teeth and replied. I've faced Arbok, so I know it's moving. Let's go. Ash said as Issei smiled and nodded. He gently touched Basilisk's head before speaking to her. Okay, big girl. Time for you to show them why you are a queen and strike fear into the mouse. Issei said as the large snake smiled with its many fangs showing deadly poison in them. Now use coil and keep using it until I say otherwise, Issei said as Basilisk nodded and used coil as it ignored the Pikachu before Ash gave Pikachu his command. Pikachu. Use Thunderbolt. Ash shouted as Pikachu shouted and fired the lightning bolt at Basilisk, who didn't pay any attention to the small mouse as the lightning bolt just bounced off its scales. Oh yeah. Basilisk's scales are not to be underestimated since some weak lightning won't harm them. So what'll you do next? I'm giving you plenty of time to attack as Basilisk gets ready to end your mouse. Issei said as Basilisk continued to use her coil move. Pikachu continued to try to bypass the armored scales on its body. Still, its physical or electrical attacks did nothing. Pikachu. Come back. Ash shouted as Pikachu nodded before retreating to Ash's side before he pointed to Snorlax. You ready, Snorlax? Ash asked as the large Pokémon nodded and walked into the battlefield. Oak allowed it as Ash then ordered Snorlax to use Body Slam. Snorlax leaped into the air and fell even further thanks to gravity before it landed on the snake's location, but when Snorlax stood up to look at Basilisk, all he saw was a small hole in the ground. Where is it? Ash asked as he looked around before looking back at Issei, who was smiling at Ash. Oh, Ash. Do you really think that just because Snorlax is huge and bulky, you think it's enough to beat my Basilisk? Oh, I assure you she's much stronger than she looks. Issei said before shouting to the area. Basilisk. End the Snorlax with Bind and Dragon Fang. Isay said as the massive Pokémon burst out of the ground right underneath Snorlax and wrapped its massive body around Snorlax, trapping the large Pokémon with its deadly coils before its fangs appeared to glow a purple and dark blue color and pierced Snorlax's body as it howled in pain as the poison entered its body. Snorlax tried to remove Basilisk from its body. Still, the large Pokémon's strength rapidly declined due to the pressure from the bind and the poison in its body until Snorlax fell on his back as Basilisk let the large Pokémon out of its wraps, only for Ash to see that Snorlax was defeated. Snorlax is unable to battle, which means that Nakabra is the winner. Oak declared as Basilisk slithered over to Issei's side and wrapped around him gently as Issei congratulated her with a berry that she seemed to enjoy. Good job, Basilisk. Would you like a break? Issei asked with concern in his voice before the snake shook her head. She then looked back at Ash as Issei then spoke to him. Well, what's your next move, Ash? You got 5 Pokémon left, don't you? Issei mocked as Ash began to get mad before returning Snorlax to his Pokeball and looking at Heracross. Go Heracross. Ash yelled as Heracross nodded and walked into the battlefield. Basilisk sighed as it went back into the battlefield before Oak declared the match to start. He saw Basilisk move quickly and wrap around Heracross, crushing the bug Pokémon with its massive coils. Heracross. Try to fly and toss her off you. Ash yelled as Heracross tried to fly, but struggled due to the armored serpent being much larger and heavier than a normal Arbok. Heracross may be a powerful bug Pokémon, but its true strength relies on its horn to hurl its enemies away from its nectar. Now use Dragon Fang. Issei called out as Basilisk hissed and bit the beetle Pokémon before Heracross fell to its knees. Heracross kept trying to throw Basilisk off his body, but with his strength diminishing by the minute, he couldn't last for much longer. Ash tried to call back Heracross, but the massive snake Pokémon squeezed Heracross so hard that Heracross yelled to the sky as it was defeated, shocking the other Pokémon as the strongest bug Pokémon fell to the snake like Snorlax did. Heracross is unable to battle, which means that Nakabra is the winner. Oak declared as Basilisk slithered over to Issei's side and wrapped around him gently. Issei congratulated her once again as Ash returned Heracross to his Pokeball. And then only 4 remained. Want to throw in the towel now, or do you still think you stand a chance? Issei said as Ash gritted his teeth before Pikachu tapped his side, saying he wanted to battle. Hey, are you sure, Pikachu? Ash asked as Pikachu nodded before the small mouse went into the battlefield. Basilisk hissed at the mouse, and Pikachu definitely felt fear from the serpent that was more menacing than Jesse's Arbok. Oak looked at Ash, who then nodded in the professor's direction before beginning the third match. Use Quick Attack to confuse it. Ash yelled as Pikachu nodded and dashed around the massive serpent, but Basilisk didn't seem to care for it like last time and was using Coil to relax itself before Ash shouted. Use Thunderbolt on its head. Ash ordered as Pikachu was getting ready to use it before Basilisk's tail interrupted the mouse as it was wrapped up in the serpent's coils before Issei gave the order. Glare. Then Poison Fang. Issei said as Basilisk glared at the mouse with its hood, petrifying the mouse in fear until the massive jaw of the snake bit Pikachu before Pikachu was squeezed to defeat by a deadly bind before the tiny mouse passed out. Pikachu is unable to battle. Nakabra is the winner. Oak said as Ash picked up Pikachu after Basilisk let him go. The result ended the same with both Belief and Noctil. Each battle only hurt Ash even more as he realized that he was severely outclassed in terms of training and skills as a trainer, while the words Issei said to him rang in his head until Issei recalled Basilisk and sent out his own Charizard that was different from his own, since Issei's version was a regional variant version of Charizard being a dark and fire type. The battle was epic, with Charizard using his training in Johto to battle his counterpart, while Issei and his Charizard fought with deadly brute force and excelled in speed and power that even outclassed Ash's own Charizard. The battle shook the earth as the two starters clashed in the air before Charizard tried to use Seismic Toss to end the battle, until Issei released one of Charizard's special moves that did serious damage to the Kanto variant. The dragons eventually crashed into the ground and both Pokémon were flat on the ground. Still, both managed to stand back up, which amazed Ash before seeing his Charizard fall to the ground and collapse into Issei's own Charizard before Oak called the battle. Ash's Charizard is unable to battle. Issei's Charizard wins, and that means the victory goes to Issei and his team. Oak said as Issei walked over to Ash's Charizard and gave it some orange berries before Issei's Charizard helped it up and brought him back to Ash. "Thank you," Ash said as he returned his Charizard to his Pokeball. Issei then returned his own Charizard along with Basilisk. Issei then patted his little brother's back before speaking to him. "There are two things I wanted to teach you, Ash. The first is that while your team is strong in some ways, they still have a long way to go to become stronger. You are too soft on your training, and I can respect wanting to care for your Pokémon, but being a trainer means you have to push your Pokémon to become stronger. Unfortunately, many of your Pokémon are still in their pre-evolution, preventing their true power from being released. A Pokémon trainer needs to be tough but firm when training to bring out one's true potential, which is why when I train with my Pokémon, I bond with them and push them to become even stronger than they are now." Issei explained as Ash was listening to his words before Issei continued with his explanation. "The second reason is that you fail to understand the mistakes that you've made as a trainer, such as foolishly not catching more Pokémon to give you a better variety of teams, as well as not actually taking the time to come up with a strategy to face your opponents. That thinking will merely get you in the top 8 once again, unless you take the time to actually enjoy the adventure and experience of being in a new region. Being a Pokémon trainer means you learn about yourself and change to become better. That's what I learned when I was in Sinnoh, Kalos, and Galar. I learned who I was before and had to make myself become a better person to be the kind of person I wanted to be as a champion, so become stronger, and one day, when you finally beat a Pokémon region, then I'll truly battle you 6 on 6. Issei said as Ash's eyes widened. He saw Issei's grin before Ash wiped his eyes and began to form tears until she smiled back and nodded. "I promise I'll get stronger. I'll become so strong you'll have to take me and my Pokémon seriously," Ash shouted as Issei smiled at his little brother and nodded. "I don't doubt that, so I guess this means you are going through the Hoenn region now?" Issei asked as Ash nodded in reply. "You bet. I'll be heading there with a team, but I want to ask a request first, Issei." Ash asked as Issei nodded before Ash said his request. "I want to train and learn how to get stronger under you," Ash said. Issei was surprised by this before asking. "Are you sure, Ash? My training is different and my Pokémon are not to be underestimated. I know that already, but I could really use your help with helping my team get as strong as Snorlax and Charizard. I realize that, in a way, you were right about me lacking training and pushing my Pokémon to be better, so I want to learn under you," Ash said as Issei pondered this before replying to him. "Okay. If you want me to train you and your Pokémon, then I should warn you that I won't be there for you in Hoenn. I plan on traveling in Kanto and possibly taking on the league here as a small break from traveling in the many different regions. It'll be nice to enjoy home for a while if that's okay with you, of course, Delia." Issei said as Delia giggled at her adopted son before she nodded and hugged her son. "There's no need to worry. Ash and I love having you here, plus I'm glad you helped him with his depression after the Johto League," Delia said as Issei smiled back before the Ketchum family and Issei headed back home while Ash's team healed up in Professor Oak's lab. Issei then spoke about his adventures in the regions he visited and the many gym leaders, champions, and Pokémon he met in the 3 regions. Ash then told Issei about his journey in Kanto and Johto, as well as the Orange Islands, which impressed him until Issei spoke about wanting to take on either the Kanto or Johto League. Still, he then decided to take on Kanto as a vacation for both himself and his Pokémon. "Oh, by the way, Ash, I wanted to let you know that should you go to Hoenn, I think a starter Pokémon for Hoenn is an excellent way for you to understand better the importance of raising a Pokémon. I heard how you had a late start, but I do think that raising a new Pokémon to become stronger will be an excellent opportunity for you to learn more about raising a Pokémon and caring for them," Issei suggested as Ash then pondered this since originally he did want to try and use one of the original starters from Kanto, but wasn't able to due to him oversleeping the first day of his journey. "I'll think about it. Also, I was thinking about possibly trying to reunite with Pidgeot and Primeape along with Haunter, since I realized that you were right about how I just left them along with Lapras," Ash said as Issei replied to him. Hey, I understand your reason for Lapras since you wanted to reconnect her with her pack, and I don't see that as a problem, Issei said as Ash smiled in thanks before Issei suggested something that intrigued Ash. I do think you should consider trading some of your Tauros to other trainers around the world since you have a large number of them and could gain some more powerful Pokémon to add to your team, Issei suggested, but before Ash could reply to him, Issei stopped him. Now I understand you do not like the idea of trading your Pokémon, but you have 30 Tauros and you hardly use them in battle. All I'm saying is that maybe it would be a good idea for you to not only allow the Tauros to be with trainers in battle, but also increase your team as well. I know you want to help the Pokémon. You already have to become stronger, but you need to have a wider variety of Pokémon to help you in battles that your normal team can't defeat. Issei said as Ash sighed and nodded in response to what he said. I know, but I just don't like the idea of trading Pokémon with someone I don't know for another Pokémon I don't know. It feels like I'm betraying them. It's like when I traded Butterfree for another man's Raticate, and granted, the Raticate was strong, but I really cared about Butterfree. Don't you feel the same when you traded some Pokémon? Ash asked as Issei smiled and nodded. Sometimes, but when I know that my Pokémon are doing well with another trainer who is taking care of them and helping them become happier, then that makes me happy. In fact, I actually traded a Pokémon I had with a coordinator I met in Sinnoh, who had a Pokémon that wanted to join me and be part of my team, so I understand what you're saying, Ash, but isn't knowing that you Pokémon will be happier with someone else besides you a good person, since you care about their happiness as well? Issei asked as Ash sighed in response. Well, when you put it like that, it does make it sound better, Ash said as Issei patted his little brother's back before the rest of the night was filled with excitement and entertainment. At the same time, Delia smiled at the two bonding before the night ended with Ash and Delia going to sleep, except for Issei, who was on top of the Ketchum's house and looked at the full moon in the sky before he reached up for the moon and closed his fist. I'll keep my promise, Arceus, by keeping Ash safe and prepared for the upcoming battles. After all, it's what you asked of me since you brought me here. Issei said as he recalled the first time he met Arceus, the legendary Pokémon god. Flashback. Wait, so you want me to help your chosen one become a Pokémon master who'll help save the world in exchange for helping me and Drake return home? Issei asked as Arceus nodded as she sat upon her throne. Indeed. My apologies for bringing you here against your will as you are supposed to be training, but I wanted to ask you since I believe you can help Ash become a better person and trainer than I see in his future, which is why I want you to go on a journey as well, since that'll allow you to heal as well as enjoy life from the hectic times you've had to put your life on the line for others. Arceus said as Issei recalled his battles with Volley, Kakabiel, Rainer, and Riser before he sighed and replied. And I'll still be able to go back home? Yes. I promise I'll send you back, and fortunately, time is faster here, meaning 1 month in your world is just a year here. Arceus said as Issei chuckled in response. Well, I've been wanting to train and get stronger to learn more about my power, so I'll do it, Issei said as Arceus smiled at his answer and sent Issei to the Pokémon world, where he met Delia Ketchum and Ash Ketchum a year before Ash's journey into the world of Pokémon. Then flashback. Heh. Only 2 months back home. This place really has helped me grow into a better person. What do you think, Drake? Issei asked as Drake replied to his partner. I think being here was the best thing that's happened to us. We're much stronger and we have our region, so that's for us to create our league and such. Imagine this. Issei Hyoudou, the Red Dragon Emperor, as champion of the new region. Drake said in amazement before Issei chuckled at the title. Let's try to gain the other champions' titles before we try to make a region of our own. The only way to become a regional champion of our own is to take on the champions in all regions, except Alola, since that one doesn't count as a Pokémon League and they don't even have one. Issei said as Drake chuckled in reply before recalling the other groups he had to deal with in his journey. I'm honestly glad I was able to stop those groups from nearly destroying their home regions for power and godhood. How pathetic. Issei said in his mind as he recalled Team Galactic, Team Plasma, Team Flare, and the crazy lunatic to summon Eternatus. Issei's thoughts were interrupted by a call from his phone as he answered it. Hello. Glad to know you are still alive, my Red Dragon Emperor. So, how was your reunion with your family? A female voice asked from the other side of the call as Issei replied to her. Well, it was a bit awkward since I had to pull out my champion persona and give my little brother a lesson in wanting to become a real Pokémon master. I care for my little brother, but I'm just concerned about his dream since he seemed to do very well in Johto. I was worried about him getting depressed since he had a good possibility of getting into the top 4. Issei said as the girl replied on her end. I understand, but sometimes you have to show some tough love for your siblings. I've never had one, but Barry is like the annoying little brother I've never wanted. Despite that idiot's eccentric personality, I can't help but want to look after the guy. The woman said as Issei snickered in response. You're not wrong, Ursula. How are things going in Sinnoh? You learn a lot from Fantina. Issei asked as Ursula smiled on her end and replied. Oh yeah, and you wouldn't believe her surprise when I was able to go upstage and take her own in the grand festival. Fantina said she was so proud of me, but did tell me that I needed to work on my battle performance, since I'm not really a battler. Ursula admitted as Issei nodded since he knew Ursula was an excellent coordinator. Still, when it came to battles, Ursula struggled with using power and used her style and beauty to win her contests. Which is why she told me that I should try taking on league and gym battles to gain experience. Oh, that's wonderful. Which region are you headed? I think Kalos would be an excellent option. Issei said as Ursula replied. We'll see. Have a good night, my love. Also, don't try to get into trouble. Cynthia will fly to make sure you are not dead if you get in trouble with another criminal organization. Ursula said as Issei chuckled with nervousness as he knew that Cynthia was a terrifying woman, especially when she was either in battle or became a literal dragon defending her mate. I'll try, but before I go, how is our favorite coordinator Zoe doing? Issei asked, as he knew that Zoe was a special woman since she admired both Ursula and Issei when she first met them, and when the grand festival was over, Zoe said she loved them both and kissed them both, which shocked Ursula for a moment until she reciprocated the kiss. As did Issei, who liked Zoe since she was an amazing woman that anyone would go for when they get to know Zoe. Zoe is fine. She's a bit sad about losing her warm body pillow, and I can't blame her. You are very warm to snuggle with on cold nights, like that passionate night in Snowpoint City. Ursula said as Issei whistled innocently as he was neither denying the fact that he and Ursula had a long night with Zoe, nor the fact that Candace, Zoe's friend, had to let them know of the noise complaints the next day. That's good to hear. Let me know what region you're going to, and I'll support you from Kanto. I'll be training with my little brother for a while, so I won't be going on my travels yet. Issei said as he and Ursula said goodnight to each other. Issei then smiled as he looked at the sky with the wind blowing and making Issei's cloak fly in the wind before he looked at the exit for Pallet Town and smiled. Kanto. This region is where I'll be for my next journey. Issei said as he was looking forward to his travels before the boosted gear appeared on his left arm. Well, Drake, are you ready for another region to conquer? Issei asked as Drake laughed in response. Hell yeah. Let's do this, partner. Drake shouted as he was excited to clash against powerful legendaries and criminal organizations since he knew his partner was a trouble magnet. Thus, the journey of the Red Dragon and Arceus's chosen one is about to begin. Ash groaned as he saw the sunlight pierce his window. It woke him up from his sleep before he slowly got out of bed. What time is it? Ash mumbled as he slowly woke up after shaking his head and pointing to the clock as it turned to 8 in the morning. It's 8. Huh, not bad. Ash said as he got up and headed to the bathroom before he groaned at waking up so early in the morning. Ash looked at his reflection as he then looked at his new clothes. Ash's new attire was his original hat, but he now wears a jacket that resembles the one his main counterpart wore in Pokémon Journeys. The series, complete with dark gray pants with yellow pockets, a white shirt with a Pokeball print, and white, yellow and blue shoes. Ash wore the same blue fingerless gloves. It's his attire from the movie Secrets of the Jungle. Issei told him that if he wanted to show he was a more mature trainer, then he needed a new set of clothes for his new journey, especially since his new team would be much stronger than they were before. Which also meant changes to his team. Who would have thought that after 2 weeks, my team is much stronger now? Ash said to himself as he then walked out of the bathroom with his new clothes on his body before seeing a blue blur lightly tackle him. Luxio. Hey Luxio. Ash said as he kneeled and patted the lightning cat's back before the Luxio purred as it then rubbed its head against Ash's left leg. Luxio had been one of Ash's newest Pokémon after Ash traded his other 29 Tauros with trainers from other regions. Apparently, many of the trainers were amazed by the Tauro's strength and wanted one, so Isay and Professor Oak saw to it that the trades were fair and that the Pokémon were well taken care of. Many trainers merely wanted a powerhouse and were willing to trade any ransom Pokémon from their party for one of the bull Pokémon. Still, Ash said he wanted Pokémon who were different from Kanto and wanted to learn more about them, which led to a trainer in Sinnoh trading a Luxio for one of his Tauros. Ash was amazed by Luxio's power and how Luxio was once an abandoned Luxio after his trainer didn't wish to keep him after he lost so many battles. Ash then decided to help Luxio become stronger, but also to show him the love that he had desired for so long, which made Issei proud of his little brother. Surprisingly, the two bonded much better than Ash did with Pikachu at the beginning. Though, to be fair, Ash was an inexperienced trainer at the time. However, after training with Issei on how to become a stronger trainer, Ash made changes to his team, as did his Pokémon. His Pokémon were amazed that Issei trained alongside his Pokémon and even fought them to help him stay in shape. He was tough enough even to take a close combat from Machamp. Ash couldn't believe it even after seeing it since he knew how strong Pokémon were until Issei said he was perfectly fine. Issei helped Ash learn how to train his Pokémon by pushing them past their limits, like how Charizard was given rigorous training in the Charizard Valley. Your team has so much potential to become stronger, but the problem is that you need to push them harder to become stronger. If you want to have a strong team, then you're going to have to learn how to be tough but firm at the same time. Those were the words that Issei drilled into Ash and his Pokémon since the Pallet Town trainer could see that his Charizard, Squirtle, Phanpy, and a few of his other Pokémon were much stronger than they looked, but Ash wanted to help them as best he could. However, the problem is that Ash never knew how, which is why the Charizard Valley was the best for Charizard since it helped him become much stronger than he was before. Ash and Luxio eventually went downstairs to see Delia cooking alongside Mr. Mime, while Issei was at the table with a pout on his face. Oh, come on. Is it so wrong I wanted to make breakfast? It's Ash's first day going on his new journey, so I wanted to send him off with a nice meal. Issei shouted as he then waved at Ash, who was stifling his laughter that was threatening to come out of his mouth until Luxio laughed for him, which released Ash's laughter as well. I take it Mom banned you from the kitchen temporarily? Ash asked as Issei groaned at the question but nodded. You try to give her the morning off and you get wrapped up by Mr. Mime, who acts more like a human than a Pokémon, Issei grumbled as Delia giggled as Issei broke out of the wrappings and cracked his neck. Well, you know how Mr. Mime can be. He thought you were trying to take his job. Delia said as she set out breakfast with Mr. Mime coming from behind and setting the food down on the table before the Ketchum family enjoyed themselves with a hearty breakfast until Issei broke the air and looked at his little brother. So you heading to Hoenn today? Issei asked Ash as the younger Ketchum nodded before Issei smirked at his little brother, stuffing his face with amusement as Ash nearly choked on a pancake. Careful Ash. The food isn't going to run away. Issei said as he handed some water to his brother, who thanked him before guzzling down his drink. Thanks, Ash said as Luxio snickered at his trainer's side before the two boys finished their meals and helped with the dishes. Afterward, the two of them headed to Professor Oak's lab to get Ash's Pokémon to start his new journey, with Luxio walking beside them. So you got your team figured out for Hoenn? You bet. Luxio will be with me as well as Phanpy, since it will be good for her to get some more experience. Your training really helped my Pokémon become a lot stronger and helped me understand what I lacked in my skills as a trainer. Ash said as Issei patted his back. Hey, don't beat yourself up. I get it that you wanted to be kind to your Pokémon, and I respect that, but if you truly desire to become a Pokémon master, then you need to understand that sometimes you need to be tough with your Pokémon. They do have emotions, but there are other times I've seen Pokémon that don't desire battle and become stronger. However, when I saw your team, I could tell that most had the same look in their eyes as Charizard. The will to become stronger, and I do apologize about my words about your Pikachu and Bulbasaur, but it was obvious they were too stubborn and prideful. Issei said as Ash nodded while thinking back to his training with Issei and his Pokémon. Issei had been prepared with his team, pushing Ash's Pokémon to become stronger, including himself, but unfortunately, not all of Ash's team enjoyed the training, mostly Ash's Bulbasaur and Pikachu. Bulbasaur didn't desire to evolve in battle, since it preferred to be a protector of the Pokémon at Professor Oak's lab. In contrast, Pikachu preferred not to train with Issei's Pokémon due to the small mouse Pokémon refusing to listen to Issei's opinions about becoming stronger, since while Pikachu is fast, there are Pokémon even faster than Pikachu that would destroy him. After Pikachu and Bulbasaur refused to do any more training, Ash then trained with some of the new Pokémon he gained from his trades with Tauros. Luxio was just one of them, and the other Pokémon he gained were a Turtwig, Tyrant, and a special Aron. Issei was impressed by the Pokémon and told Ash how to use them to help his team grow stronger. Primup and Pidgeot rejoined the team as well, especially since Noctowl was given a lot better training, with Pidgeot helping him better fight instead of just relying on its psychic moves. Ash was glad to have his old Pokémon back as he was then given the chance to have up to 10 Pokémon on his team to not only give him a chance to train his Pokémon, but also catch some new ones. Eventually, the two brothers made it to the professor's lab and the professor was glad to see them both. Ah, Issei and Ash. It's good to see you both here. Ash, your Pokémon are waiting for you and I would like to talk to you for a moment, Issei. Oak asked as Issei nodded before Ash left the two alone until Issei was sure they were alone. Okay, what's up, Professor Oak? You got that look in your eyes when I told you about Team Plasma back in Unova when that crazy scientist Chorus worked with Geddes and that woman Lucimen to cause the wormholes opening up in Alola. Issei asked as Oak sighed before bringing Issei to his office and handing a file to him. It's about a professor in Paldea who goes by the name Professor Turo. He kept talking about trying to finish his time machine that would allow him to bring Pokémon from the future. I remember you telling me about your experience in the past of the Sinnoh when you were chasing after Cyrus. Oak said as Issei recalled his time in the past when Sinnoh was going after Cyrus, when Chorus and Geddes worked together with Luciman and the wormholes almost the world. Yeah. That was the only time I really had the desire to kill someone ever since I came to this world. Cyrus was an idiot, thinking he could become a god. Geddes was an insane fool, thinking he was a god and manipulated N to be his puppet. Worst of all was when I broke a promise to Luciman's daughter when I couldn't save her. Issei said as he clenched his left fist. He recalled holding the blonde-haired scientist in his arms when she took a hit for him. Oak knew about Issei being from another world and being far more powerful than he looked, but knowing that he had to kill a person if he really meant it. I would never hold it against you. You did what you had to do in order to save the world. If you hadn't done so, then the world would have been in disarray and chaos. I understand that Luciman is doing better in the hospital. Oak asked as Issei sighed before replying. Yes. Physically, Luciman is fine, but her mental state is another story. The problem is that due to her being barely alone when crossing from another world back to ours, the energy messed with Luciman's head. Lily understands as well as her brother, but they're worried she will never wake up. Issei then looked at the time machine in the file and asked. Why ask me about that in this time machine? Because Area 0 is locked off and there have been strange things happening in Paldea. Define strange. Issei asked as Oak then proceeded to show him a picture that reminded Issei of a Hydreigon, but this one was more robotic. Is this from a movie, Professor Oak? This Pokemon is some knockoff from a sci-fi. Issei asked as Oak chuckled in response to the question. No. I understand your concern, but this is actually a copy of Hydreigon, but it fights as a Pokemon. I'm not sure what to make of it, but I have a feeling that if that is indeed a Pokemon from the future, then the time machine may still be operating. I've spoken with the Pokemon champion, and she wants you to be in contact should there be any more of these futuristic Pokemon. She doesn't want me to come. I figured this is what you wanted to tell me. Issei said as Oak shook his head and replied. Not exactly. Luciman knew about you helping deal with Team Galactic and Plasma and wished to speak to you but couldn't since she was busy with the Pokemon League as well as the school. She also knew about your interest in going through Kanto to take on the League. What I really called you here for was because one of Ash's trades was actually interested in meeting you. When it saw you training with Ash, it wanted to join in since it was definitely going to join you until I stopped it. Oak explained as he then led Issei to the back, where he saw the Pokemon that were clashing with each other Pokemon in the back. The Pokemon seemed to be a humanoid weasel Pokemon. It has a dark gray humanoid body. Sneasler has 3 sharp toes on each foot connected to purple fur. The 3 brown claws are long, with 3 red lines and a brown spot on each arm. It has a yellow diamond on the chest and head. The shoulders have 3 dark gray spikes on the shoulder. It has sharp red eyes. The face is colored dark purple and has one right dark gray ear, while the left ear is a long red feather that extends down to the back. The neck has a small scarf of sorts around it as the Pokemon looked at Issei and seemed to bow to him. However, Issei froze when he saw the X mark on top of the gem on its forehead. Alpha? Is that you? Issei asked as the Pokemon known as Alpha smiled and nodded toward Issei before standing back up. You know this Pokemon? Oak asked as Issei nodded in response. He was one of the Pokemon that I met in the past of Sinnoh. He was a stubborn but determined Sneasler who was different from others. Unlike Weevil, Sneasler is a loners who prefer to stay in the icy areas. However, this Sneasler is different since he is much smarter and a more skilled hunter who seems to tell that Cyrus and Geddes are enemies along with Chorus. The only one he trusted was me since Alpha didn't trust N either and could tell he was a puppet. Issei explained as he also recalled the green-haired peaceful protester who wanted to free Pokemon from enslavement. While Issei could understand why N had his distrust of humans, he also knew that not all humans are bad people. Alpha then approached Issei and held up its Pokeball, which seemed to be a bit worn out, but Issei could tell that it was one that he had made since it had a picture of a crimson dragon head. "Heh. You still kept the one I caught you in all this time?" Issei asked as Alpha smiled and nodded before handing him the Pokeball that Issei took before holding it out for him. "Pair to work together again, Alpha?" Issei asked as the Sneasler smiled and nodded before tapping the ball and entering it. "You continue to surprise me more and more," Oak said as Issei smirked at the comment before looking at Oak. "Tell the champion of Paldea to keep me updated if there's any more information about that robot dragon. I should be able to deal with Kanto easily and help out should they ask for me to come over to assist them," Issei said as he then stopped before looking back at Oak once again and asked. "About Chorus, do you think he's involved somehow? I know you and him were friends, but what he's done to try to unlock a Pokemon's full power and how far he's willing to go." Issei said that he knew that Oak and Chorus were friends until Chorus was removed as a Pokemon professor due to his research showing zero respect for Pokemon. The league shut him down and removed his license. Oak was looking at an old picture on the wall with a younger version of the professor and Chorus before Oak sighed and replied to Issei. "I know Chorus wasn't a bad person like the organizations were, but I also know he was going too far into his research. I remember him when he was a kind man who only had an ambitious dream, but I had a feeling that as time went on, he would bend the law to get the results he wanted, which was probably why Team Plasma sought him out," Oak said as he then patted Issei's back before speaking. "You knew the Chorus was a good man, which is why you didn't kill him," Oak said as Issei nodded before the two headed towards the yard where Ash was speaking to his team. "Listen up. These past 2 weeks have been really helpful and tough, but that training has only helped us become stronger. Now we're heading to Hoenn, and this time, we'll not only win the Hoenn League, but also beat the champion," Ash said as the Pokemon cheered before Ash pulled out a list. "The Pokemon I'm taking with me are Fanphy, Heracross, Luxio, Tyrant, Larian, Charizard, Wartortle, Turtwig, Pidgeot, and finally, Muck," Ash said as his Pokemon were excited. Ash looked at Pikachu and saw that the mouse looked away. He then hurried away with Bulbasaur going after him. Ash looked away as he collected his team before walking back towards Issei and Oak, who seemed to be waiting for Ash until Issei looked at Ash's expression before patting his brother's shoulder. "Let me talk to Pikachu," Issei said as Ash nodded before Issei hugged his brother and patted his back. "Stay safe, little brother, and if you need anything, please let me know, and I'll be there to make sure you don't get killed," Issei said as Ash nodded before the trainer left the lab and headed toward the exit of Pallet Town. In contrast, Issei headed into the forest area and reached a lake before sitting next to the Pokemon. "Hey," Issei said as Pikachu looked at Issei and looked away from him before Issei sighed and looked at the lake. "Must suck not going with Ash and knowing you are a stubborn one. You didn't want to admit that you were weak because you began to see the others getting stronger. Must have burned you up seeing Ash's team getting stronger while you were in the dust, especially after you failed to help Ash in both Johto and Kanto," Issei said as Pikachu glared at Issei, but the trainer ignored the mouse as Pikachu then spoke to him. "Initiate Poke Translator. And what would you know? Ash trained hard in both leagues and still lost, but that wasn't my fault. It was those jerks Team Rocket in Kanto, since they always stalked Ash to try and get me for some reason," Pikachu yelled as Issei was silent for a moment before replying to the small mouse Pokemon. "I know, and I do not blame you for your performance. That idiot referee called out Squirtle was defeated just because the turtle was knocked out by sleep powder, which forced Ash to use you and Charizard." Issei was relieved as Pikachu was shocked before smirking at the mouse and nodding. "And yes, I can understand you. If you've been to as many places as I have, you tend to pick up a few things, and one of the most important ones I picked up was understanding Pokemon," Issei said before he looked at Pikachu and patted his head. "However, you need to understand something, Pikachu. While you may be fast now, there are many Pokemon who are far more experienced and capable of taking you down before you can even attack them. Your moves and abilities are meager at best, since your species are good for gym battles. Still, compared to the other electric types of other regions, I'm afraid that you are inferior to them, since they are much stronger than you, so if you do want to get stronger to help Ash in the league, then you need to become stronger, which means evolving to learn moves that will be able to help you get stronger, or you can just be distant and act like Ash abandoned you," Issei said as he got up and walked away from Pikachu, who was silent the whole time until Bulbasaur walked up to Pikachu and offered a pat on the Pokemon's back before the small dinosaur-like Pokemon just let the small mouse know that a friend was there for the Pokemon. Issei then walked towards the end of the town before looking into the forest and smirking as he put his fingers to his lips before letting out a loud whistle for only a few seconds until the sound of a bird soaring in the air and landing on Issei's right arm he just held out as the large bird then nuzzled its large beak against Issei's head. "Heh. Nice to see you, Huntress," Issei said as he patted the bird's head, causing the large bird to chirp in delight until Issei smiled as he recalled the large bird being the same Firo that Ash threw a stone on his first day as a trainer. Issei had taken a walk during his time in Pallet Town, and when he entered the forest, he was attacked by a large bird. Still, Issei didn't seem fazed as he avoided all of the bird attacks until the bird stopped and spoke to him about who he was before Issei chatted with the Firo and admired her ferocity and training when Issei decided to catch her and help her become a true huntress. After knowledge that the Firo was a girl, Issei then smiled at the bird before speaking to the Firo. "We're alone so that you can turn into your new form," Issei said as Firo nodded before the Firo became a harpy woman that had red hair mixed with some brown, while her arms were replaced with wings and claws, while her feet were talons, until her new human form was covered with shorts and a bra. My apologies, Master, but I wanted to make sure we were alone before I became my human self, and that Lord Mutwo blessed me, Huntress said as she walked towards Issei and bowed to him. Indeed. I was surprised to see that, especially since Mutwo seemed intrigued about giving the Pokemon a humanoid form, despite him not trusting humans after what Giovanni did to him. Issei said as he recalled meeting Mutwo when he met the legendary Pokemon when Genesect was purposely created to be a special Pokemon to combine technology and Pokemon. Huntress was a Pokemon that Mutwo sought out after sensing her rage and frustrations towards Ash Ketchum and helped her release her rage against Ash to convert it into a training regiment that pushed Firo past her limits until she went back to Pallet Town and ruled the forest with her flock of Spearow. So what do you require of me, Issei-sama? Huntress asked as Issei replied to her. I need to speak to Mutwo if he's available. It's about Chorus and a device in a new region. Does this have to do with Team Plasma Galactic? No. However, I can only be sure once I speak to Mutwo. Can you get me in touch with him? No need for that, Isay. I am already here. A voice said as Isay then turned to see Mutwo himself as Huntress left the two alone before the legendary Pokemon spoke to him. I heard your thoughts. You need to see Chorus about this time machine, correct? Mutwo asked as Isay nodded before the Pokemon sighed as he continued. I've made a mistake not taking him in when we saved Genesect, and I don't plan on that man running around doing who knows what. However, I will allow you to ask him your questions. Thank you, Mutwo. Can we do it at a later date? Of course. I look forward to the next time we spar again. It's not the same facing another Pokemon when you are a god in the form of a human. Heh. Stay safe, Mutwo. And give my regards to your sister. Issei said as Mutwo smiled. He then teleported out of the area. Huntress smiled as she then bowed and turned back to normal before Issei held up her Pokeball. Let's get this journey started, Issei said as he then returned Huntress to her Pokeball and placed the ball on the boosted gear gem before it went inside it. It was a special storage unit where Issei placed his other Pokemon since he didn't exactly trust his extra Pokemon with the other professors, plus it was an excellent way for him to swap his teams out. Time to head to Pewter City Gym, Issei said as his body glowed red before he vanished from sight. The Red Dragon Emperor has begun his journey and now, let's check on the younger brother. With Ash Ketchum. Ash was on a boat and enjoying the breeze as he was looking forward to his new adventures, unaware that a special someone from his past adventures was coming along for the ride. Someone said they were shocked as they took off their sunglasses and saw the person who had saved their life a year ago. Ash. They said as their eyes glowed with a purple aura until a Jengar appeared next to them and snickered at its partner before the trainer held Jengar's mouth shut and glared at him. Don't you even think of telling Ash I'm here? I want to see his reaction. The trainer said as Jengar shivered in fear but nodded as he knew not to make his trainer mad before seeing Ash and smirking at his old partner. Good to see you again, Ash. I can't wait to see his reaction. Haha. Jengar snickered as he then vanished into the darkness while his trainer sighed and relaxed in the shade as the journey was going to begin soon. However, Ash will still have to deal with a few annoyances of the past. So this is the boy that Jesse and James kept trying to steal his Pikachu? He doesn't seem that special, looking at his past victories. However, it seems he's encountered many different Pokemon in Kanto and Johto. Let's see how many new Pokemon he'll see this time. A blonde-haired woman said as she kept her eyes on her target, recalling the words of her boss. I still can't believe that Giovanni's kid is the same kid that the idiot trio has been trying to deal with for 2 years. Still, I'm loyal to Giovanni and will do what he asks, which means if he wants me to keep his kid safe, then so be it. After all, Giovanni is the one who saved my life all those years ago, and I'll be damned if anyone tries to defy him. Domino said as she then made preparations to keep an eye on him and watch him from the shadows. The two brothers' journey will indeed be filled with memories that they won't forget for a long time. Man, that was a nice boat trip, don't you agree, Luxio? Ash asked as the small Luxio smiled and nodded before the two began to leave the port. Ash began to continue heading into the town, unaware of the one following him. This'll be good for me since I can see how strong he's become since we last met, plus I can test the technique my mother showed me to win a boy's heart, Sabrina said, confident that she could use her charm and strength to win Ash's heart. The Ketchum boy held a special place in her heart after he saved her when she gave into her power and closed herself off from even her parents. Sabrina then continued towards Ash with Jengar in tow, as Domino continued to watch the two from afar. Well, time to begin my mission, Domino said as she changed into some more casual clothes and began to head out to follow the boy and complete her mission, while also doing some recon for Team Rocket and Hoenn, in case any one of villain groups tried anything. The trio then proceeded to enter Little Root Town. Ash looked at the Pokegear and saw that he could not only meet Professor Birch, but also obtain a starter Pokemon there. Ash and Luxio continued on their path to the professor's lab. At the same time, Sabrina couldn't help but be amazed by the new region. This was Sabrina's first time leaving Kanto and seeing a new region, so she wanted to make the most of it by not only trying to see the new Pokémon, but also seeing any new outfits that would suit her, as her chest was starting to feel a bit heavy and tight due to her growth spurt. How does mom deal with such a large chest like this? Sabrina asked herself as Jengar chuckled at his master's misfortune before it let out a little yelp after Sabrina grabbed the ghost by its ear. I'm sorry, Jengar. Did you want to say something to me? Sabrina asked, flashing her eyes for a moment. This scared Jengar before the ghost felt pain. Sabrina then beat him up with her psychic powers while Domino ate some grilled chicken from a food stall, enjoying the show. I knew that Sabrina was taking a break from being a gym leader, but this is honestly too hilarious to miss. The kid is heading to the professor's lab, so it's not too far if you've got a Pokémon that can use teleport. Domino said as a Wigglytuff laughed at the ghost Pokémon being beaten up by a human with psychic powers before Domino offered the Pokémon some of her chicken, which the balloon Pokémon gladly accepted. After beating up the poor prankster, Sabrina returned Jengar. She continued to follow after Ash as she wanted to introduce herself to him without Jengar interfering, since the Pokémon had a knack for not only annoying her at times, but also embarrassing her at times. Like the time Jengar messed with her after Sabrina went through her growth spurt and had to deal with back pains causing the Jengar to call her old, infuriating the gym leader and the ghost seeing the afterlife so many times. Domino and Wigglytuff continued eating the chicken they got before Domino threw away the trash inside. Oh well, time to work again. Wigglytuff, if you would please. Wigglytuff smiled and nodded before tapping Domino's left arm, teleporting both of them to their destination. Domino then smiled as she stayed near the lab, but also far away enough that no one would be able to hear her, before she reached into her knapsack and pulled out a video radio. This is Agent Domino, reporting to Giovanni. Over. Domino said as she started up the video and saw Giovanni's face appear before her. Domino. I'm glad to see that you've made it to Hoenn without any trouble. I take it you've already made it to the lab and ahead of my son. Of course. Professor Birch is out of town, which will allow me to slip into the lab with his assistant in charge and obtain a starter Pokémon. Very good. Remember your cover that you are starting your journey as a Pokémon coordinator in Hoenn and your Wigglytuff was your first partner, but you wish to have some fresh ideas for your contests. Of course, it'll be easy for me. I love those contests and I can put on one hell of a show and continue to dazzle the audience with my skills as an actress. Domino said in a faux dramatic tone as Giovanni chuckled at the girl's antics, already knowing of Domino's ability to blend into any role she was given without fail. However, I do have my concerns about the gym leader, Sabrina, since her psychic powers can be a problem should she attempt to read your mind. Already got that taken care of. It's actually thanks to that metal coat in my head that psychic powers can't enter my mind, although I do worry about my hard head since I have accidentally knocked out people before with a simple headbutt. Domino replied sheepishly as she had an experience with a few steel Pokémon that nearly killed her. Still, luckily, Giovanni was able to save her and gave her the metal coat to protect her head from external damage better. Promise me you'll be careful and keep in mind this Team Magma and Aqua. From what I hear, they wish to change the world by using legendary Pokémon when I know full well that no man can control a legendary Pokémon. I've tried and failed to do so. Giovanni said as he still recalled the damage Mutwo did to him and his operations back in Vermilion City. I promise I will, and thanks for caring about me, Giovanni. You don't have to since I'm just another grunt. Nonsense. Out of all the members of Team Rocket, you're one of my most trusted members, and you don't cost me so much money, Giovanni said as he meant every word of it since he really cared about Domino, who was like a daughter to him after he took her in and cared for her as if she was his second child. Cassidy was another member of Team Rocket who gained Giovanni's respect, though Cassidy did act like a teenager at times, since she can be a bit arrogant due to her skills. Giovanni made sure that she was properly punished when she failed, since Giovanni could tell the girl was strong and well-mannered, along with keeping a cool head. Still, that arrogance would be detrimental to her skills should she not be punished, which is why Giovanni has taken on a fatherly role in her life since Cassidy's father died. Her mother wasn't a bad influence, but didn't really punish Cassidy when she stepped out of line. As leader of Team Rocket, Giovanni may be cruel and dangerous, but he sees those who earn his respect as a family because he loves the life he started with Delia and Ash. However, the only thing he can do to protect Ash and support him from afar is to ensure that Ash grows up with his mother in a good home. When he sees his son in battle, Giovanni can't help but be proud of him as a father. Thanks, Dad. I really do appreciate everything you've done for me and want to repay you for all you've given me. Well, a nice birthday card would be nice. Dad. I'm only kidding. Hahaha. Promise me you'll be safe and keep an eye on Ash, though. Sir, yes sir. Domino said in a salute before she ended the call with Wiglet smiling at her trainer. She then hugged Domino, who relaxed in her partner's soft embrace before sighing to herself. "I really love you, Dad," Domino said, happy that she had a father figure like Giovanni in her life. He had taken her in when she had nothing and helped her grow into the woman she is today. And now, Domino merely has to play the waiting game. She was planning on becoming Ash's traveling partner, which would not only allow her to keep Ash safe, but also report back to Giovanni about the journey, since she knows that if one travels with Ash, then that'll open a world of possibilities. While Ash, Domino, and Sabrina land in Little Root Town and make preparations for their adventures, Issei is making his mark in Sinnoh. Kanto region. Celadon City. Is this all Kanto has to offer? Issei said as he left the Celadon gym after obtaining his 4th badge, which felt like it wasn't a real battle, given how Issei had only needed 1 Pokémon on his team to deal with the Pewter City gym, due to Brock using only 3 Pokémon. Onix, Crobat, and Graveler. Leading to Issei calling upon his Electress that destroyed the 3 Pokémon, and disappointed by the gym leader's tactics which mostly relied on Rock Slide and Rock Tomb to trap the enemy, which was no problem for Issei's Electress, since the Elfish Pokémon was much faster, thanks to Issei's training than both Rock Pokémon, and with its Giga Drain and Liquidation. Allowing the Pokémon to defeat them quickly. The Crobat was mildly amusing, since the bat was able to give Issei an okay air battle. However, that failed when Electress used its own Rock Slide and Thunder Punch to defeat the bat, thus earning his first Kanto badge. Issei was disappointed but knew he had a lot more experience so that the other gyms could give him a challenge. Sadly, this didn't happen since 2 of the 3 gyms were just as disappointing as Pewter Gym. Misty led Cerulean City Gym, but sadly, that was also a disappointment due to Issei merely calling on his Sneasler. Sneasler wasn't amused by Starmie and Psyduck, who honestly earned the trainer's pity. Sneasler dealt with the 2 quickly as well, which made Issei feel like he should have gone to Johto instead. Lieutenant Surge was a good battler but relied heavily on his Raichu, which Issei could respect. However, his Rampardos easily dealt with the Electric Gym. Issei smiled and complimented Surge since the veteran soldier earned Issei's respect and vice versa. However, the fun ended there since Erika and her Grass-type Pokémon were quickly defeated by Issei's Charizard. Issei kept the power of the flame to a minimum since he wasn't trying to burn the place down. This led to Issei easily obtaining his 4th badge and back to the present, where Issei sighed at the lack of skilled gym leaders. "I'm really disappointed by the lack of strong gym leaders. No wonder so many other regions call Kanto the boonies," Issei said before Drake reassured him. "I think your dragon's battle side yearns for more intense battles and such. I'm surprised you and Surge got along despite you being able to beat him. It's because Surge was the only competent gym leader who didn't rely on some ridiculous and predictable strategy. Brock was a fool, thinking he could only beat me with an Onix and Graveler, along with his mildly skilled Crobat. The forest didn't have very many Pokémon to help at the beginning, so it's understandable why some trainers prefer Squirtle or Bulbasaur to deal with the first 3 gyms before catching more skilled Pokémon." Issei said as he took a bite of his burger and recalled the excitement and the thrill of battle in the other 4 regions, even Hisui, that really pushed Issei's skills as both a trainer and Pokémon to be refined as a sharpened blade or a diamond that was in the rough. Drake chuckled at his partner's explanation and was surprised by how he had changed from a person with little to no combat experience to a strong general who led his team to victory with deadly strategies and tactics that took the enemy off guard. "Look on the bright side. The other gym leaders may be able to challenge you. The next one does have psychic Pokémon." "Fair point." Issei replied as he felt the gaze of someone watching him. Then, Issei decided to finish his burger and drink quickly as he headed towards the outskirts of the town. Before Issei knew it, he was far away enough from the town to deal with his stalker. Issei then paused, motionless in an open field. He turned around and clenched his left fist. Then he slammed it into the ground, causing a massive earthquake. A crater formed beneath him, and some of the trees blew away. The shaking ended with a groan heard from inside the forest. "Ow, ow, ow. You really got me, huh, Issei-sama?" a voice said as Issei groaned. Issei knew who it was because he had experience dealing with his stalker. "Hello Aurelius. What are you doing here?" Issei asked as a woman appeared from the trees and laughed nervously as Issei recognized the uniform she was wearing. It was similar to Team Plasma, but different since the colors were now crimson red with emerald green to match the balance breaker. The new girl, Aurelius, had platinum blonde pony-styled hair and heterochromatic eyes. A black-blue thunder right eye and a whitish-blue fire left eye, which showed her status as a blessed human. Back when Issei was dealing with Team Plasma, Aurelius was one of the plasma grunts who wasn't exactly okay with the experiments Geddis allowed on Pokémon by the crazy scientist Chorus. Hence, she kept her Pokemon at a safe distance and grew concerned about N, since she could tell Geddes didn't seem to care much about N, but the boy was fooled by the honeyed words that her former leader told the young man. After Issei had stopped Geddes and Cyrus from abusing the Tao Trio and the Creation Trio's powers to create a new world in favor of the old one, which resulted in Aurelius being killed protecting Issei from harm, much to Issei's shock before Mars also took a hit for Issei from Giratina, shocking the Red Dragon Emperor, since the two of them were different from their organizations. After the fall of Team Plasma and Team Galactic, many of the grunts were reformed and went about their normal lives. Still, people like N, Jupiter, Saturn, and Chorus were doing community service or in prison due to their actions. N was given a second chance, but Saturn and Jupiter felt betrayed by Cyrus, knowing he didn't care about them. Chorus was locked away with no technology at his disposal. Aurelius and Mars were actually revived because Issei asked for a second chance after they sacrificed their lives to save him while they were under Geddes and Chrysis's control. The Tao Trio revived Aurelius and blessed her with a piece of their power. In contrast, Mars was revived by being blessed with the power of foresight, thanks to Dialga and minor shadow magic, thanks to Giratina. At the same time, Palkia gave her the ability to affect the gravity of her being and what she touches and allowed her to go into space without needing to breathe. Issei was glad the two were okay, but after his journey in Unova and Sinnoh, Issei was approached by the two, who bowed to him and called him their master, due to their being part of the Dragon Guardians. The Dragon Guardians consist of Issei's followers who wish to serve and protect the Red Dragon Emperor and his precious people who came from the heavens and protected the world from many evil organizations. Needless to say that Issei was a bit embarrassed that a new religion was created after him, which led to Drake laughing his ass off in Issei's mind before Issei thanked them, but he wasn't looking to become a god among the world despite his power. Still, they were persistent and wished to aid him, which is why when Issei was in Galar, he allowed the Dragon Guardians to fight alongside him to protect the people from Eternatus, as well as Team Flare and Kalos. Issei knew the Dragon Guardians never went too far, but he was glad that he was able to make an impact and help turn their lives around. The offerings were a bit much since Issei was a human like them, which made his followers respect him even more. And the leader of said Dragon Guardians was none other than the girl in front of him. "Well, I wanted to make sure that you were safe in Kanto and wanted to join you on your journey," Aurelia said, as Issei raised a brow and asked. "Didn't I ask you guys to keep an eye on Ash while he's in Hoenn in case of any criminal organizations? He seems to be a magnet for trouble, and I don't want him to suffer because of them," Issei said as he knew the Dragon Guardians kept their vow to protect his loved ones as. Issei thanked them for their loyalty and services until Aurelia stood up and explained the criminal groups to Issei. "We did our report and it appears that Ash won't be alone, since Team Rocket Grunt Domino and gym leader Sabrina are in the Hoenn region with him. It seems that Giovanni, Ash's father, wishes to keep him safe by having Domino at his side. Shall I intercept her and send a message to Giovanni?" Aurelius asked as Issei pondered this before smiling to himself as an amusing idea appeared in his head. "No," Issei said, much to Aurelius's shock, before Issei explained his thoughts. "I know Giovanni and I don't see eye to eye on many things, but Ash and his mother is one thing we do agree on, since I can tell Giovanni may seem heartless, but he does care about his family. Report your findings to Team Rocket on Team Magma and Aqua. Their leaders, ghouls, Pokemon, grunts, bases in Hoenn, and even their most skilled trainers. I want to know if I must interfere to keep my brother and his future girlfriend safe." Aurelius was surprised by this before realizing what Issei's intentions were with Team Rocket. Of course. Domino will ignite the flames of jealousy within Sabrina, which will push her to help Ash better. She will also confess her feelings to Ash, helping the boy mentally grow and better understand women. Issei-sama probably helped with that during his 2 weeks of training, but the boy is still 13, and that's when the boys slowly start to like women. It's genius. Unfortunately, her train of thought was interrupted by Issei calling out to her. "Boy. Aurelius. Are you coming, or do I have to order you to walk?" Issei asked, and Aurelius, moved by her god's tone, skipped happily towards him. "Humming, Issei-sama. And stop calling me Sama when we're in public. People will get the wrong idea," Issei said as Aurelius caught up to him and snuggled into his left arm, which made Issei see the girl as a puppy before he patted her head, causing Aurelius to squeal internally as she felt so happy and fulfilled that her god was still so kind and gentle with her despite her faults. Oh, only one thing could make her happier. "After we set up camp after the day is finished, we'll be sparring since I want to see if you've kept up your training. No, I won't hold back against you since you and Mars are stronger than most humans after being blessed by the gods of this world," Issei said, which made Aurelia smile even more as she loved sparring with Issei, since all eyes were solely on her, and how he both complimented and insulted her when sparring made her feel more confident about her skills, since she desired to follow him until the end of time and possibly one day near his child in the future. Of course Issei-sama. I hope I won't disappoint you, Aurelia said as Issei chuckled at her comment and patted her head. Don't beat yourself up. You're a good fighter and one hell of a woman. I would definitely mark you as one of my own. Issei said this, making Aurelius feel like she was on cloud 9, with her mother telling her to go for it. Thank you, mother, for helping me prepare for this moment. Aurelius prayed to the heavens as Arceus and the other legendary Pokémon couldn't help but be amused by the Ketchum brothers. Things were definitely going to get more interesting. I have to admit that I honestly wasn't expecting you to clear through many of the gyms so quickly, Issei-sama. Normally, it takes a trainer a few months to get all 8 badges. Aurelia said as Issei scoffed at the notion while the two were going through the forest. As if my team would lose to a couple of weak gym leaders. Out of the 4 I faced so far, only Lieutenant Surge was able to earn my respect as well as my Pokémon. Erika, Brock, and Misty were simply boring, so it surprised me that such weak gym leaders think they can win with meager tricks. Issei said as he rolled his eyes at the idea of his Pokémon losing to any of the Kanto gym leaders, since Issei was well aware of the Kanto gym leaders, but made a list of those who would actually be a challenge and get him fired up for battle. Lieutenant Surge was at the bottom 4 of his list, and Sabrina, the psychic gym leader, was the 3rd gym leader of his Kanto gym leader list, since Issei was impressed by her psychic powers and thought she would become an impressive challenge before going to the poison-type gym leader. Janine. After Koga went to join the Elite Four, Janine took over for her father and proved to be an impressive opponent for trainers to help them improve against dangerous and unpredictable opponents. She was the 2nd highest on his list of challengers, while Giovanni was, surprisingly, his number 1 pick for the strongest gym leader, since Issei knew that the man was a strong contender, which made Issei grin at the idea of clashing with the leader of Team Rocket, just like the trainer Red and Blue did back in their heyday. Do you have a plan to deal with the psychic gym? Sabrina is out, but her father is strong, so he might be able to give you a challenge. Aurelius asked as Issei smirked and replied. I already have 3 on my team who are excited to face the psychic gym. Charizard is one of them since his dark typing makes him an easy choice to deal with the psychic types, but for the other 2 options, just in case, I have 2 others who are better prepared to deal with the psychic gym. Isn't that right, my feline friend? Issei asked as a leopard walked towards the red dragon emperor and rubbed its head against his leg while smiling at the shiny gem eye that was actually its mega stone. Issei found Leopard and Unova within Castelia City after defeating Berg with his Charizard and Alolan Muck that he received in a trade. The Leopard was actually once a Purlian that its coordinator master abandoned after losing its eye in a nasty fight with Team Plasma. The doctors and Pokémon tried to heal the eye. Still, the damage was done, leaving the coordinator with medical bills, which made the poor cat realize it was harming its trainer more. Hence, the car destroyed her own Pokeball, and she thanked her master for taking care of her for so long, but after getting some money to help pay the bills. Issei was amazed by how other Pokémon and trainers looked at the one-eyed cat with disgust and mocked it, but Issei could see past its physical appearance and see its whole eye show its resolve to become stronger and better, even with her one eye. Isay admired that resolve and asked for the Purloin to come with him, which made the cat hesitant at first, so she decided to follow him into the city. Purloin had seen many sides of her master when he was a goofball, a deadly strategist, a tough but firm trainer with him and his team, and the kindness that he showed to others, and asked nothing in return. Purloin smiled as his personality reminded her of the kindness her old trainer showed her, and so she asked Issei to be captured by him. And ever since then, she's been a bit clingy at his side, which made Sylveon and Purloin fight it out. Purloin eventually evolved to Leopard, and the feline has remained by Issei's side and even took on walking on her hind legs, sometimes when she wanted to, since she enjoyed walking on 2 legs more than 4 when she was a Purloin. The cat mildly amused Aurelius since she was on the cat's good side while Mars was on Leopard's hate list. For some reason, the feline hated Mars and attacked her whenever she had the chance, but the reason was because of Purugly. Apparently, Leopard had a hatred for Purugly since the fat cat was the one to take her eye, which made Purugly and Leopard have a rivalry on who was more beautiful than them. Issei and Mars didn't get into the middle of it since the two duked it out and eventually made up with them being catty friends who also beat the crap out of each other. Well, I know that Leopard of yours will give the Psychic Gym a run for their money, but I'm curious about who's the third choice of the team, Aurelius asked. Issei chuckled as he silenced her with a finger. Sorry, but even I can have a few secrets, Issei said, which made Aurelius pout at the sight of her master before the duo continued down Route 5. How mean, Aurelia said as the trio continued before they stopped at a lake to take a break. Man. This is the best, Aurelia said as she soaked her feet in the water. I forgot how relaxing it is fighting you, especially after last night when you really made me wet. Aurelius moaned in joy as she rubbed her legs together while hugging herself. She recalled last night's sparring match with Issei crushing her, but giving her all of his attention and even mocking her techniques. Which made the Tao-blessed user moan, as she was a closet masochist who loved to be given such a gift that allowed her to not only spar with her god, but also be crushed by his hands and feet. Leopard rolled her eye at the perverted Tao user, since she knew her master would bring a harem of off-mates if the dragon coordinator, perverted Tao user, spacewoman, and a few others she had seen along the journey. Leopard saw her master enter the forest around the lake, which made her smile as she knew that Isay would be training with one of the youngest members of the team who truly wanted to fight in the Kanto region. "Thank you, Master Hyoudou. I'll follow you and serve you until the day I see Sen enter the darkness," Leopard said as she decided to snuggle next to Aurelius for a nice nap. Isay was in the forest. He looked around to see that he was alone before nodding at the scenery around him. "Good. This will be a good spot," Isay said as he pulled out a heavy ball and then called out the Pokemon within it that took on the form of a massive crustacean-like Pokemon roared as he was released from the Pokeball. "Hello, Samurai," Isay said calmly as the massive Golisopod, which was red instead of its normal colors, looked down at Isay before readying its claws, which made Isay smile as he readied his boosted gear. Pokemon. Samurapod. Evolved form of Golisopod. Type. Bug Steel. Appearance. Samurapod retains the basic structure of Golisopod but gains a more armored and sleek appearance. Its exoskeleton is adorned with larger and sturdier armor on its claws, similar to ornate samurai armor, and its arms have been transformed into razor-sharp blades. Its eyes gleam with determination and focus. Pokédex entry. Samurapod, the samurai Pokemon. This bug steel-type Pokemon has honed its combat skills to perfection. It is said that only those who truly understand the essence of strength can witness its evolution into this formidable warrior. Evolution requirements. Golisopod evolves into Samurapod when it reaches level 50 and knows the move Swords Dance. "So, ready for another spar before we face the psychic gym?" Isay asked as the massive Samurapod roared in excitement as the crustacean then charged at Isay before the Red Dragon Emperor merely cracked his knuckles as he stopped the sword strike from the massive Samurapod, which destroyed the trees behind Isay but left him unharmed. The Dragon Emperor knew his Pokemon's fighting style before dodging the swords that would have cut a normal person in half, but with Isay's scales and armor, he wasn't worried about some sword strike. "Not bad. Let's keep going," Isay said as he punched the Samurapod with no boosts, sending the samurai back a few feet, which made the Samurapod smile at his master before Isay charged at Samurapod and began to deliver quick and deadly punches and kicks, which made Samurapod smile at the power behind Isay's attacks before pushing Isay away with his arms, making Isay smile at his Pokemon's resistance. "I knew you would be a worthy opponent, Samurapod, ever since we met back in Sinnoh when you turned your back on your previous master, Hunter J," Isay said as Samurapod scoffed at the name of his old master before thinking back to when Isay and Samurapod became a team. "And when the samurai was born." Flashback. 2 years ago. End of the line, Hunter J. "Your mission is over, your ship is sunk, and your henchmen are dead," Isay said as he looked at the destruction of Hunter J's ship before the hunter coughed a bit of blood as she glared at Isay. "Damn you. Do you know how much I sacrificed for this life? I chose this path. After all, I had to find some way to make money and take care of my sister because my father was too much of a coward after he left us. I knew what I was doing, but a few Pokemon are a small sacrifice to make my sister feel better and smile, so if that's a bad thing, then I'm glad I made those choices." Hunter J shouted as she tried to fire her device on her arm, which clicked but didn't work as Isay still walked towards her before ripping the device off her arm and crushing it into bits and pieces. "Do not think that just because you have a cute toy, you'll always be superior," Isay said as he then looked at Hunter J's eyes as she knew she was going to die before looking down at the ground. "What are you waiting for? Kill me, but promise me you'll look after my sister." Hunter J cried as she let the tears fall from her face before Golisopod, one of Hunter J's Pokemon, approached Isay with resolve as he pushed himself up from the ground. "I admire that your loyalty holds towards your master, but a real warrior knows when they are defeated and accepts defeat with grace. You know nothing of power since your kind are nothing but cowards who tuck your tail and run when the going gets tough," Isay said as he knew of the Golisopod evolution and scoffed since they were nothing but bullies who ran when someone stronger scared them into fleeing like Wimpod. Golisopod clenched his left claw at those words since he knew that the human in front of him was right. Ever since he saw the Red Dragon Emperor on TV, the Pokemon wished to become stronger like him. Still, whenever he felt afraid, he would use his ability to leave the fight, which often resulted in Hunter J calling him a coward at times or a good tactical retreat. Still, Golisopod knew he was only further and further away from his goal. Eventually, Golisopod realized that his idol and the human were the same person since Isay was weak at first. Still, instead of running, he preferred to fight until he had nothing left to give, which made the Pokemon envious of the human before Samyapod trained in secret behind his trainer's back and worked hard to one day earn the respect of his idol. Even now, when he was beaten, and so were his teammates, his idol still looked away from him. Golisopod growled as he saw a sword nearby that made Golisopod clench his left claw before grabbing it and feeling a strange connection to it. Golisopod charged at Issei with the sword, which made Issei smirk as he reflected the blade with Ascalon before slicing the sword in half. Golisopod refused to back down and continued to fight despite the injuries Issei inflicted on him, even when Hunter J told him to stand down or run away. Golisopod roared as he would never run from battle. Poke Translate activate. I refuse to run away like a coward because I'm too afraid to face my fears and opponents. Golisopod shouted as he used Sword Dance to raise his stats before charging at Isay, who seemed amused by this display of courage. Very well then. Come to me, Golisopod. Isay shouted in the declaration as Golisopod roared and charged at Isay, before the two clashed with only swords. They both had smiles on their faces. Isay was enjoying himself, as was Golisopod before the Pokemon sword shattered into pieces. Isay then disarmed the Pokemon and pointed the sword at his neck. You fought well, Golisopod, but now it's over. Surrender, and I'll spare your life. Isay said as Golisopod nodded and did so before Isay smiled at the Pokemon before speaking to him. True power does not mean you are the fastest, strongest, or smartest, but a real warrior knows what true courage is. The power to fight against all odds. And that is what makes you a worthy warrior to become a samurai. Isay said as he then stabbed his sword into the ground and held one hand out for Golisopod. Come with me, and I shall make you a true warrior. A samurai who will have the courage to face his enemies and stand his ground. As well as understand the meaning of power. Isay said as the sun began to set, which made Golisopod smile at his idol. He then got on one knee and bowed to his new sensei. I, Golisopod, swear my fidelity to you, my master, Issei Hyoudou. I shall become your blade and fight by your side to destroy all your enemies. Golisopod said as he felt a strange power within him as he began to glow and evolve into a new member and friend to the Red Dragon Emperor. Then flashback. And look how far you have come. Samyapod, the samurai Pokemon. I am proud of you. Issei said as he placed a hand on the Pokemon's chest, which made Samyapod smile as he cried a few tears, grateful for his master's teachings. The two then began to clash again as master and sensei for another couple of minutes, before Samyapod thanked his master for training him as he returned to his Pokeball. Issei smiled at the ball that held Samurai, before he headed back to see Liepard snuggled next to Aurelus with her feet in the water. It almost makes me not want to ruin their sleep, Issei said as he decided to do some fishing and see if he could catch any shiny Pokemon. There's nothing like some quiet fishing to pass the time by, Issei said as he enjoyed these moments just as much as battles, since Issei was able to not only relax with some peace, but also think about other things on his mind. Such as that robot Pokemon from the photo. I'm surprised that such a strange Pokemon came here, but I wonder if it's possible that it really did come from the future. If that's true, then there must be another time machine being used in Paldea, similar to the one Luciman at either foundations used to go back into the past, but why would someone want to bring Pokemon from the future to the present? Issei pondered as he recalled the dragon's appearance and remembered that during the battle between Team Galactic and Plasma, the distortion rifts began to bring Pokemon from the past to Alola. Dedis is dead. I made sure of it, and Cyrus is gone. Lysander is petrified due to Evil draining him of life, Chairman Rose is still in his region, and Luciman is in a coma. Who could have the intellect to use a time machine? Issei pondered to himself before feeling a bite as he pulled up a Magikarp before releasing him back into the water. The portal then opened near the lake, causing Issei to be alerted by the presence leaving the portal and to see that a strange creature came out of the portal and collapsed near the edge of the lake. The Pokemon appeared to be a large reptilian Pokemon. Most of its body was scarlet, with white accents on its cheeks, abdomen, legs, and tail. Its head features a large plume and a pair of long thin folded wings, which appear more like antennae when not extended. Its rear has a similar, much larger plume. These plumes and antennae are white in color and blue-purple at the base. It has yellow eyes with dark red pupils, 4 claws with a web in between the inner two, and blue features on its elbows and shoulders, as well as blue spikes running down its neck. On its chest is a large circular protrusion which resembles a rubber tire. Its texture and black coloration are similar to the base of its tail. Issei was shocked by this strange dragon before approaching the large lizard-like Pokemon until he touched its head, causing the Pokemon to shine brightly until a woman with some features similar to the lizard appeared in the Pokemon's place. Interesting. The strange Pokemon has transformed in a manner similar to the Dragon King's. Dryag said as he could see the power of the lizard now woman before Issei asked his partner. Wait, all of the Dragon Kings have a human form? I've never seen any dragons take on a human form since I thought they would have seen humans as inferior and such. Issei said before Drake laughed heartily as he responded. You're not wrong. Many dragons would have seen humans as weaklings, but the dragon kings, such as Tannen, Tiamat, Albion, and myself, are capable of taking on a human form. Many of us enjoy seeing what your species has created, and I can tell by this one's power that it has the potential to become a dragon king, but it seems to have been beaten badly. Drake explained as Issei noticed how the woman's body was covered in many scars and bruises before Issei gently picked her up and carried her over to the place where he sat. Isay then put her down on the ground before reaching into a portal and pulling out a strange concoction that seemed to radiate a sweet aroma. Isay then picked up the woman's head and tilted it back before placing a small amount of the contents into the mouth, hearing the woman swallow as some of her injuries began to heal. Isay continued the process for minutes until the woman's injuries were no more. He then began to take notice of her features and noticed how she took on a dragon lady's form that resembled a bit of a delinquent biker. Wow. She's really pretty. Isay said as the woman began to groan. She slowly opened her eyes to see Isay looking at her before backing away and bumping into a tree. Who are you? Stay away. The woman yelled. She then froze as if noticing her voice before she ran past Isay and looked at her reflection in the water before yelling so loud it scared Aurelius and Leipard awake as they saw the strange woman screaming at her reflection. But how I only became this form to enter human villages before that strange portal sucked me into it, and you. The woman yelled as she then tackled Isay and began to hammer her fists into Isay's chest, but strangely, the punches were light and not really hurting him until the woman stopped as she was panting heavily on the ground. Damn it. I am the Winged King and I'm reduced to this pathetic form. The Winged King said as she looked over her form before Isay stood up and walked over to the lady before slapping her cheeks with both hands, forcing her to look into his eyes. Listen to me. I will explain what happened to you after you fell from some portal, but right now, you freaking out is understandable, but not helping anyone, so can you please let me explain what happened to you? Isay asked in a commanding tone that made the Winged King blush before nodding her head. Isay then sat her down on the ground and began to speak. Now, why don't we start with our names? My name is Issei Hyoudou, the Red Dragon Emperor and wielder of Drake, the Dragon of Domination. Isay said as he showed the gauntlet on his left arm. It's an honor to meet you, Winged King. Drake said, happy to meet a fellow dragon before the Winged King cleared her throat as she then spoke to them. My species is known as Karaden, but my name is Korra, the Winged King. Korra the Karaden said as Issei smiled, happy to add a name to her and asked. What happened to you that caused you to fall from that portal? Issei asked as Korra tried to speak, but her head hurt as her eyes widened before glimpses of the past appeared in her mind. Ah. Korra yelled as Issei held her hands from hurting herself as the woman yelled before collapsing in his arms, crying as if she was hurt. Damn it. Damn, those two. Korra yelled as Issei looked down and tilted her head up before asking. Who's responsible for what's happened to you? I don't know their names, but a weird lady and man in strange clothes kept talking about how they would better the world with the past and future's help. I also saw another me there that took me down and chased me out of the strange place I ended up in, and now I'm here, in my human form, freaking out and can't even recall all of my memories. Korra yelled as Issei hugged her before patting her back gently, causing Korra to stop her shaking. She then cried into Issei's arms before he slowly hugged him back. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Korra cried as Issei didn't say anything as he continued to rub her back and kiss her head before looking at Aurelius and Leipard with a simple stoic look, which made the two understand not to approach them as Issei then felt Korra's breathing and heart steady as he then looked at the two and sent a message to Aurelius. Aurelius. I need you to send a message to the Dragon Guardians and tell them to research the strange Pokémon appearing in Paldea and if they would be able to find anything on the resident professors there. I'm assuming that they may have a time machine operating there, which caused Korra to appear. She's known as Karaden, so begin your search there. Issei said as he gave her a mental command, making Aurelius smile at the order and nod his way before tapping her forehead. She then teleported from the area and left her master and Leipard. Korra then looked at Issei and thanked him for comforting her before apologizing for her actions, which merely gave her a pat on the head by Issei. Hey, I get it. It's scary being in a new place and not knowing what happened to you. Believe it or not, you just like me. An outcast in another world. Issei said as Korra was shocked by the man's kindness and the wisdom that seemed to radiate off his aura, which made Korra think she stood before a king until she bowed her head in reverence. I thank you, Hyoudou-sama. I'm glad that I was able to run into you, but I do have a request. You wish to stay here with me, don't you? Issei asked as Korra was shocked he knew her intentions before nodding. Yes, please, Korra asked, which resulted in Issei hugging her and kissing her head again. Of course, your highness. You can come with me and Leopard on my journey. It's not nice traveling alone. Believe me. Issei said as Leopard nodded in agreement. Korra looked at the two and smiled in gratitude. Thank you, Korra said. She didn't know what would happen now, but one thing she knew for sure was that this man. No, a king. Would be able to help her in this strange new land she was forced to enter due to powers outside of her control. Now then, who's hungry? Issei asked as he prepared a small fire and was able to catch some fish, which made Korra smile in joy as she was salivating at the food in front of her, but Issei stopped her as he then began to make some magic herb sandwiches. After making the meals, Korra dug into her meal with vigor, as if she hadn't eaten in days before, moaning in delight at the meal she was consuming. Oh, this is delicious. Definitely tastes better than those weird mushrooms and bugs humans eat in my world. Wait, you said humans, as in actual humans like me? Issei asked. Of course. Humans lived with Pokemon as long as I've known, but food choices sucked since the only good foods were the blood of other dragons when they intruded on my territory and tried to usurp me or mate me when I said no. The weird mushrooms and bugs the humans tasted strange, but meat was always the best thing in each meal. Korra said in joy as she ate her sandwich, ignoring the veggies in it, while Issei continued to listen to Korra speak about the world that she ruled over as a king. By the way, why do they call you the Winged King when you're a girl? Issei asked before Korra shrugged her shoulders. Well, no one really understood Pokemon language and called me a king, so I accepted it and enjoyed the benefits that came with said title, such as offerings in exchange for eliminating threats that came to their villages and such. Minor things like that. Korra said as she continued to eat her third sandwich before she decided to ask him a question. Your scent is that of a dragon, and yet you appear as a human. How is that possible? Korra asked as Issei chuckled before replying to her. Well, let me tell you. It's a bit of a long story. Isay said as he then explained his life story to her, including how he and Drake first met back in his world. Korra was amazed as she absorbed so much information from his story as a sponge soaked up water before Isay ended it with his training in this world. So you mean to tell me that the god of Pokemon, last Arceus, asked you to help his chosen one to unlock his power and to become a stronger trainer? Korra asked. Isay nodded in response after taking a bite of his meal. Correct, Isay mumbled before swallowing his bite and speaking to her. Time works differently in my world and this one, so a month back home is a year here. I've actually been here for about 2 years. Give or take a few weeks. We've actually been here for 1 year, 7 months, 3 weeks, and 5 days. Drake said, making a note of how long they were really here since Isay was able to conquer many regions and could have had a better track of time when he was training, resting, or chatting with others. Huh. Thanks Drake. Isay said while Korra was amazed by the connection the two have since Isay was a weak human, no, the weakest human in the Boosted Gear's history, and yet the dragon in said Boosted Gear was apparently his best friend and partner. Amazing, Korra whispered under her breath as she envied their relationship since she never had a relationship like that back in her time due to her being the Winged King and never being seen as anything else but a god among humans. Well, be heading to the next gym tomorrow morning and if you'd like to come with us, we wouldn't mind, Isay said as Korra chuckled at the invite. Inviting someone you just met to join you? One might think you're trying to add a queen to your harem. Korra said as Isay merely smirked and replied. Yes. The hero has failed and I can have you to myself as the spoils of war. Isay said in a fake tone, similar to an overlord or villain, making the two of them laugh. Korra smiled at Isay before taking another bite of her fifth sandwich. Thank you Issei Hyoudou. You really are a kind soul. Thank you as well, Lady Korra. Please. Call me Korra. Korra said as Isay nodded before the two continued to share stories about their worlds, while Isay also filled her in about the battles of the world and such. The Winged King was happy to have met the Red Dragon Emperor. Little Root Town. I thank you for the electricity. You have my gratitude. Miraidon, or Mira, said as she hugged Ash in her arms, who was surprised to see a Pokemon in a human-like form, while Sabrina glared at the Pokemon. Back off, you snake. Sabrina said, hugging Ash's left arm in her supple bust, causing Ash to look away as he didn't want to say anything inappropriate that would result in getting a mallet to the face or a psychic blast if his experience with Misty said anything about how girls react to questions like the ones in his 13-year-old mind. Sabrina, on the other hand, could read Ash's mind and smiled that her outfit worked as her mother said to have Ash think about her. She also surprised Ash by taking his lips in for a kiss that made Sabrina want to mount him there in the lab until their third companion stopped her from giving in to her lust. Not bad player. You got 2 girls in your arms. Most guys would envy you. Domino said as she hid her laughter from them in her head due to Domino laughing her ass off about the boy's reaction to not just Sabrina giving him a show of her boobs, but also Miraidon becoming a human and needing a recharge, which resulted in her eating electricity and batteries she found in the lab. Ash's Pokemon couldn't help but be amused by their trainer. Still, the ones who were really worried about him were Charizard and Wartortle, since they knew humans went through a puberty stage where they began to notice women's assets and began to fall for them. Still, unfortunately for their trainer, Ash wasn't exactly the best to notice women having an interest in him, much like some of the women he attracted in both the Kanto and Johto, like Sabrina, Lacius, Bianca, and a few others. Luckily, the two of them were able to help Ash with his hormones, which resulted in Ash asking his Charizard and Wartortle to cool him down, which meant Charizard would burn him with Flamethrower. Wartortle uses a water gun to put Ash down. Ash knew a bit more about women thanks to Issei during their training, who told him how to notice certain things about women, especially since Ash is at the age where he sees Sabrina differently. Especially thanks to Sabrina's heavenly bosom that was soft to the touch, her lips that looked so soft like pillows, her strong arms that made Ash feel protected, and the fierceness in her eyes that made Ash love her even more. Damn it, Issei. Why did you have to tell me about this stage? Now I can't get either of them out of my head. Ash shouted in his head as he was glad but angered that Issei helped his preteen mind understand how he would react to women. This meant things would really be amusing and interesting now. Stay tuned. End. So how was this story? I hope you like it. And if you like it, share this story with your friends and like the video too. And don't forget to subscribe our channel for daily awesome fanfiction. Okay, it's time for me to go. Bye bye.